Please join me in welcoming Gordon to speak to us.
Brothers and sisters, I feel very honored and a deep sense of privilege to be able to stand here amongst you and to share this sacred time with you. Imam Rashid has said, we Unitarians and your congregation, your community have been good friends for some time, and we greatly value the connection that we have with each other. As Unitarians, we honor the truths and the beliefs and practices and the wisdom of all religions. We have the history, our roots in the Judeo-Christian tradition, but we have moved ahead. I don't mean that in a superior sense, but we've moved on a journey in which we embrace the goodness and the beauty and the truth of all religion. So I feel very much at one with you, even though I'm not entirely familiar with the practices and rituals and liturgy and so on, but it's a great joy and privilege to be here, and I really mean that. I am grateful for this opportunity of being able to share some thoughts. I don't consider it my job tonight to repeat what the Sheikh said this afternoon in his sermon. I'm not going to repeat what he said, but I rather want to offer some thoughts that stood out for me, and perhaps to bring some of my own thinking into his theme, fasting in Ramadan and God consciousness. And I particularly acknowledge the privilege of being here on the last Friday of Ramadan, of the holy season of Ramadan. Today's sermon was for me a teaching presentation based on the scriptures of Islam. And for me, as one who is passionate about interfaith work and understanding between religions and dialogue and collaboration between religions, I found the Sheikh's sermon to be not only down to earth, but very universal. It was a message that was universal to all religions, a message about life, a message to all of life. I found his words spoke to me as an ordinary person who, like all of us, is contending with all the struggles of being human. His words spoke to me in the very humanness of whom I am and of whom we are. And I was reminded, as I reflected on that, of the oneness and the unity of all life and of all of us as people, as human beings. I've often said that it's in our very human struggle, it's there that we find God. In our struggle, God is immanent, very present, a God who feels with us, who feels our every joy and celebration, our every pain and sadness, our every doubt and uncertainty, our hopes and aspirations, and our successes and our failures. And as I listened to the Sheikh and considered this reaching out to us, teaching and reaching out to us in our very humanness, I was reminded of the words in the Hebrew scriptures in the book of Deuteronomy, referring to God. The eternal God is thy refuge. And underneath are the everlasting arms. The immanent God who holds us. His arms are there holding us, who guides and coaches and coaxes and prods, who strengthens and who comforts. And we know if we're God conscious, and the Sheikh used that term, that was part of his theme of being God conscious. We know that if we're God conscious, that God is present in our very humanness. So in a very human way, this was the essence of the Sheikh's message. And I've chosen to comment on 5 points, and I'll try and be as brief as I can. The 5 points being integrity. He didn't use the word integrity, but he spoke about the wholeness and the aspect of being true to ourselves, and I'll come back to that. He referred to faith expressed in positive action. He referred to intention. Living in the now was a point he made very strongly. And finally, compassion is the last point I've picked up that I want to comment on. referring to integrity, the Sheikh referred to the rituals that we practice in our religious life. They're very important, he said. But if they're not based on values, we fail in our religion. He said, there is the danger that we perform our religious rituals, but our values, even though we perform our religious rituals, our values may be violated. And what I'm hearing him say is about integrity. Very often our thoughts, or importantly our thoughts, need to be aligned with our actions. What we think is what we do and say. But very often what we think is not what we do and say. And so we are lacking in integrity. And that's what I hear him saying, is that there's the danger that as we perform our religious rituals, we go outside and we live a different kind of life. We are lacking in integrity. Or in the religious setting, we perform our rituals and we go out into the world and our behavior violates our values. Now, I've reflected a lot on the question of values. It's a concept that is referred to in many dimensions of life in terms of psychology, education, religion, obviously, teaching and behavior, the values, the moral principles and beliefs that we practice, that we put into practice, or the accepted standards of a person or a group. Now, accepted standards might not necessarily be wholesome ones. For example, a value of we place great value in acquiring wealth or possessions or power. That's a value that some people have and live, but it's not necessarily a wholesome one. So looking at values, as I reflect, I prefer to use the word virtues. A virtue as an admirable quality or feature, or the quality or practice of moral excellence and righteousness. For example, the virtue of fairness. And if we look at values such as justice, the virtue could be juxtaposed as fairness, justice and fairness. Peace as a value, and gentleness as the virtue. Compassion as the value. Love, forgiveness. Being humane and caring as the virtue. And modesty, the value, the virtue being humility, and so on. And so the question of living our values can be viewed as living a virtuous life, a life of virtue. And all faiths hold virtues as sacred and as paramount. Secondly, the Sheikh referred to faith expressed in positive action. That sentence in itself speaks for itself. It speaks powerfully. But I've often wondered about the language of religion, the language that we use in religion. It's quite fascinating. And perhaps I'm nitpicking, but I like to analyze a little bit. There comes the intellect, and maybe the heart is put aside for a moment. But as I intellectualize, and I think about the concepts of words that we use, concepts such as faith and belief and worship and so on, I've reflected long and hard on the concept of belief. What does belief mean? Certainly, it's the adherence to a set of teachings and practices. I believe in God. But it has another meaning, going back even further back into history, the history of language. Belief also meant, and in my view means, being committed to that which we most dearly love. Belief is being committed to that which we most dearly love and hold with reverence or with passion. Responding to a call to pursue that which we hold dear, that which we value, that which makes for a good life. In a way, as I try to think of the roots of the etymological underlying meaning of words, the word belief does make sense to me. Lief, L-I-E-F, in various languages. Lief is love, in German, lieb. I love that which I really aspire to, and I respond to that call. So faith in positive action, good action, is responding to that which you're most powerfully and passionately drawn to and respond to. In the Christian scriptures, there's reference to faith without works or deeds. Faith without works is a dead faith. The Sheikh spoke of positive action flowing from our religious practices and rituals, action which flows from that which we most dearly love and that towards which we most passionately aspire, all that is good and right and wholesome, and all that inspires us in terms of our religious beliefs and practices, that to which we aspire to in eternal life. And thirdly, he referred to intention. Now that's speaks to me, another powerful word, intention. And he spoke of a purposeful and a meaningful life. For surely we derive meaning from things and experiences, from people, from places, but we also give meaning to things. And to live a purposeful and a meaningful life requires a positive action and a positive intention to live that life purposefully and meaningfully, where it has meaning, it has value, and there is virtue in the way I express that. We owe this to ourselves, and more importantly, we owe this to God, who created us and who sustains us. To live a meaningless life, a purposeless life, is to be dead spiritually. To live consciously, and the Sheikh spoke often of consciousness, being aware, in other words. To live consciously, meaningfully and purposefully is to live in God and God in you. Intention, as I understand it, is the forerunner to action. The forerunner to empowering oneself and the other. And in a way, prayer, as I understand prayer is the expression of an intention, an expression of empowering that which we hold dear, that which we aspire to. The prayer that says, may there be peace, may there be love, may there be good health, rather than asking anxiously for it. And we do, indeed we ask, because we are humans and we need that help. We need to ask, and we receive the gifts. But we can also empower. If I say to you, may you have success in your exams at the end of the year. That's my prayer for you. That's my wish, my intention. So living a life intentionally is again what I heard the Sheikh speaking about. And living in the now. Always living in the now. I want to share some words with you. Some words by a colleague, Unitarian Minister Ralph Waldo Emerson, who spoke about the now. And he says, we postpone or we remember. We do not live in the present, but with reverted eye, we lament the past, or heedless of the riches that surround us, we stand on tiptoe to foresee the future. So mindfulness, noticing, living in the now. And finally, compassion. Woven deeply into everything the Sheikh said today was the virtue of compassion. Central to all religion, caring for the needy, the oppressed and the violated. And you may be familiar with the Jewish practice known as Tikkun Olam, which means repairing the world. So as I hear the Sheikh urging us to be conscious of our obligations to be repairers, to be restorers and healers of our troubled world right here in our own community and in our own city through acts of charity and compassion. And so I close with these words, this Buddhist blessing. Blessings of a kind heart upon you. Blessings of the eyes of compassion upon you. Blessings of this moment upon you. So may it be.